6 days before the U.S. Open main draw begins in New York, one of the most respected voices in American tennis delivered a warning that sounded almost too simple to matter. The USA better make sure they put her on big courts. 7 words. That was it. But coming from Patrick McEnroe, those 7 words carried a very different weight. Because McEnroe wasn't some random commentator looking for a headline. From 2008 through 2014, he served as the general manager of the USA's Elite Player Development Program, the man responsible for helping build America's next generation of tennis stars. He was also the longest-serving Davis Cup captain in United States history. In other words, he spent years inside the exact system he was now warning. And the player at the center of his warning was an American. Her name is Alex. She's 21 years old, she's from the Philippines, she's ranked number 18 in the world, and she's expected to enter the US Open as the number 17 seed. On paper, that ranking is impressive. But here's the strange part. A player ranked number 18 doesn't automatically get Arthur Ashe Stadium. Usually players around that ranking are sent to outer courts, sometimes early in the morning, while the biggest cameras and biggest audiences are focused somewhere else. Arthur Ashe holds 23,271 spectators. It is the largest tennis stadium on the planet. Players can spend years trying to earn a night session there. Alex, meanwhile, has never made it beyond the second round of the US Open singles draw. So why would Patrick McEnroe be worried about where she plays? What does he see that the ranking doesn't reveal? Because the ranking is easy to understand. Anyone can look it up. But McEnroe was looking at something completely different. He was looking at demand. And once you understand what happened to Alex 7 months earlier in Melbourne, his warning suddenly becomes much more serious. This isn't really a story about a seating chart. It's about attention, money, television, national identity, and whether a major tournament knows how to recognize a superstar before the traditional numbers catch up. And the most important evidence didn't happen in New York. It happened thousands of miles away, on a court in Melbourne that most tennis fans probably couldn't even name. So forget the ranking for a moment and look at who Alex actually is. At 21, she has already done things no Filipino tennis player had ever done before. In 2022, she won the US Open Girls Singles title, becoming the first player from the Philippines to accomplish that feat and the first Southeast Asian player in 2 decades to claim the title. Then, in 2025, she defeated Clara Towson in New York and became the first Filipino player in the Open era to win a US Open main draw match. Think about how unusual that is. Before Alex, the country had never had a player win a singles match at the US Open during the Open era. And then, seemingly almost overnight, the story accelerated. Earlier this year, Alex was hovering around the number 40 ranking range. Nothing about that position predicted what was about to happen. At Wimbledon, she pushed her way into the 4th round and defeated defending champion Iga Swiatek along the way. Then came Washington. Alex had never won a WTA singles title. Suddenly, she was beating one opponent after another. Leylah Fernandez, 2nd seed Elena Svitolina, Naomi Osaka. And then came the final against top seed Jessica Pegula. Alex lost the opening set, but instead of collapsing, she flipped the match completely, winning the next 2 sets 6-4, 6-0. A player from the Philippines who had never won a WTA title was suddenly a champion. She had defeated multiple elite opponents, climbed into the WTA top 20, and become the first Filipino woman ever to reach that ranking. But even that isn't the most important part of the story, because Patrick McEnroe wasn't reacting only to Alex's results. He was reacting to what happens when Alex walks into a tennis stadium. Mary Jo Fernandez, an ESPN analyst and former professional player, has described the atmosphere around Alex's matches this summer as extraordinary. And the most revealing detail wasn't even about her matches. It was about her practices. People were showing up just to watch Alex practice, not thousands watching a match. Fans were turning up before competition simply to see her hit tennis balls. Fernandez described the turnout as being off the charts, with every point generating a level of noise that felt completely different from a normal tour match. Think about that. Tennis is a sport where spectators are routinely asked to remain quiet while players prepare to serve. Yet around Alex, the atmosphere has started resembling something closer to a Billie Jean King Cup tie, where an entire nation can feel like it is sitting inside the stadium. When Alex wins a point, the crowd doesn't react like someone has merely won a point. They react like something much bigger has happened. And that's where the scheduling problem begins. Flushing Meadows has enormous stadiums, but its outer courts are a completely different environment. Some hold only a few hundred spectators. Others can accommodate roughly 1,000 or so. Certain courts don't have the same permanent camera infrastructure as the major stadiums. Some have standing areas. Some develop lines outside the gates when the crowd becomes too large. Now imagine placing the player who is attracting enormous crowds onto one of those courts. What happens? Fans arrive and discover there isn't enough room. People who bought tickets may not even be able to watch the match they came to see. Television coverage becomes more difficult. The tournament's biggest emerging story can disappear from the main broadcast. And the very atmosphere that makes Alex such a compelling attraction becomes a logistical problem. Nobody benefits. Not the fans, not the broadcaster, not the tournament, and certainly not Alex. But this isn't just a hypothetical concern. It has already happened. 7 months ago, another Grand Slam made almost exactly the mistake McEnroe is now warning the US Open not to repeat. January. Melbourne Park. First round of the Australian Open, Alex against American player Alicia Parks. The match was scheduled on Court 6, a venue with roughly 1,500 seats. On paper, that didn't sound outrageous. Alex wasn't yet a top 20 player. She wasn't a Grand Slam champion. She hadn't established herself as one of the biggest names in women's tennis, so the schedule probably looked perfectly normal. Then the fans arrived. Filipino supporters poured toward the court. The seats filled. The surrounding walkways became packed. More people kept coming even after it was obvious that the court was reaching capacity. And one of the people who couldn't simply walk through the crowd was former world number 1 Lindsay Davenport. Davenport had gone there to watch Alicia Parks, an American player. Yet she reportedly couldn't even get close enough to the court. Stop there for a second. A 3-time Grand Slam champion and former world number 1 couldn't reach a first-round match because the crowd around Alex had become too large. And that's only the people who were visible. How many ordinary fans arrived, saw the crowd, realized they couldn't get inside and left? 2,000? 5,000? More? Nobody really knows, because tournaments count the spectators who enter. They don't count the people who were turned away. At first glance, you could dismiss Melbourne as a scheduling mistake. Maybe the organizers simply didn't know what was coming. But then Martina Navratilova highlighted the deeper problem. Tournament organizers, she argued, need to consider where players are from and how large their fan base might be in the city hosting the event. Melbourne has a significant Filipino community. The potential audience was there. The organizers simply hadn't treated that audience as part of the equation. And that exposes something important about how tennis scheduling works. Rankings are clean. Rankings are objective. Rankings are defensible. If you're ranked higher, you have a stronger argument for a bigger court. Nobody can accuse a tournament of favoritism when it follows the ranking list. But rankings measure competitive history. They don't measure future demand. They don't tell organizers how many people are going to travel across a city to see one player. They don't measure how many people will buy tickets because of a player's nationality. They don't measure how many viewers will stay awake until 2 in the morning just to watch her. There is no ranking column for that. And that is the blind spot Patrick McEnroe appears to be pointing toward. Because the world ranking can say number 18 while the audience behaves as if Alex is already a top 5 attraction. And the gap between those two realities is becoming impossible to ignore. The question then is why the problem seems to be growing instead of disappearing. Because since Melbourne, Alex's popularity hasn't slowed down. It has expanded. Washington became louder. Toronto became bigger. Cincinnati brought another level of attention. And eventually, the story reached American players themselves. Emma Navarro, an American competing at an American Grand Slam, reportedly acknowledged that the US Open could feel like a road environment for opponents facing Alex. Think about how unusual that statement is. Players don't normally advertise how powerful their opponent's home support might be. Yet Alex's crowd has become so recognizable that an American player could already imagine what it might feel like to face her in New York. And now the US Open faces an unusual dilemma. On one hand, the tournament wants stars, energy, packed seats, and compelling television. Alex brings all of those things. Her Filipino fan base represents enormous enthusiasm and commercial potential. On the other hand, this is an American Grand Slam. American players, an American Grand Slam. American players.